In this video, I'm going to talk about the exact problem-solving mentality I use to achieve 100% success rate in problem solving, no matter what the domain is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually infuse a lot of engineering and software development coding concepts into life and business in general, and that's what has been my thinking principle from day one. So engineering school, the first thing you're told when you're in engineering school is that your job, your role is problem solver. And the word engineer actually comes from a derivative of a Latin word. I think it's called ingenium. And what that means in Latin is basically to contrive or to devise. You're essentially finding ways to solve something, or you're bringing about solutions to things that you don't know or you may know. So how can you apply that? And how can you apply that to whatever problem you're going through? I'm going to add one more thing from the coding world. So when you learn to code, whatever you're coding, whatever language you're using, all you're doing is you're problem solving at any given point. And the number one thing you realize is that no matter what the problem is when you're coding, it's solvable. And this is why there is no code that is ever stuck. No coder gets stuck for a very long period of time. They eventually figure it out. The main reason that they figure it out is not because of the code or the language or any of that or their intelligence. It's actually because they approach the problem knowing that there's a solution. They don't know what the exact solution is, but they always approach it with knowing there's a solution. So when you're going to solve a problem, there's two parts of it. One, your mind is thinking, is this even solvable? And then the second one is, what is the solution? The biggest barrier, the 80% of the work, is convincing yourself it is solvable. The 20% of the work, which is the easier work, is finding the solution. Because without the first part, you're never going to go into the second part of finding the actual solution. So, super important to make sure you think like this. And this is my thinking principle. No matter what I do, I apply the engineering principle that I am a problem solver, and I apply the coding lessons that I learned, which is every problem is going to have a solution. What that allows me to do is when I go into solve any problem, I don't waste any time into what if the problem is solvable. I already know that every problem you can imagine, there is a solution. Because if there's a problem, there has to be a solution, or else that problem can't exist. So when you approach things like that, you get to the problem faster, you get to the solution faster, and you can iterate on the solution faster and eventually beat out your competition. So whenever you go about anything, make sure before you approach a problem, you're approaching it in a way that, okay, I'm not even going to waste time to see if this problem is solvable. I already know this is solvable. I'm just going to go about finding the exact process I can to find the solution. Now, I'm going to add one more thing to this video, which is finding solutions is actually the easier part. Once you have the 80% of is this solvable, and then you go into searching of the solution, what you really need to do before all of this to make your life easier to solve the actual problem is you have to define the problem very, very well. If you don't define the problem, you're very much shooting in the dark. So the image I want to paint is that you're in a room, you have a gun, you're trying to kill somebody in the room because they're opposition, lack of a better example, and you're trying to find this person, and you're thinking that your problem is that you haven't killed your opposition yet, but the room is dark, you haven't turned on the lights yet. So you wasted all your time shooting at the wrong things, and you could be out of your bullets by the end, and then your opposition has an advantage on you. The real problem was that you didn't define what your problem is. Your problem wasn't that you haven't killed your opposition yet. Your problem is that you haven't turned the lights on in the room so you can see where your opposition is yet. This is the concept you want to use, that whatever problem you want to solve, you have to make sure that you know the problem very well. So just to summarize everything, every problem imaginable has a solution. If you want to make money, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to be a constant problem solver. And if you want to be a really, really elite problem solver or a solution deriver, whatever you want to call it, you have to be elite at defining the problem. And the best way to define problems is asking yourself what the problem is and recursively asking it until you get to a point where you cannot ask that question anymore and you're left with a core question, which is the core problem. If you solve that, everything else will fizz out and you'll have the solution readily available to you and the best one possible. So hopefully this helps. I'm going to always try to infuse engineering concepts as much as I can to any situation possible, because I do think engineering teaches you the most valuable life skills out of any discipline. And hopefully you guys like this video, and I'll make another one tomorrow.